Hey, what's going on? My name is Yaki and I'm an artist here on YouTube, and this video is going to go over everything you've ever wanted to know about Posca markers. So let's go! So what are Posca markers? Posca markers are a paint pen. The company was started in Japan about 30 years ago. They were mostly made famous by the graffiti community for their versatility, ease of use, and you can just, throw one in your pocket and you're good to go. It's not as big as a spray paint can, so that's super cool. They come in 8 different sizes of marker. There are 5 different nib shapes. There are, I think, 66 different colors now, in which 8 of them are metallic, 6 of them are fluorescent, and 8 of them are glitter, which is super cool because I watched a video that somebody did a couple years ago going over Posca markers, and I think that they were only at 55 colors, so it's super cool that the company is continuing to add and grow with these because I love them. So for surfaces that it says that it can work on, it says it can work on wood, fabric, metal, plastics, paper, cardboard, minerals like rocks, and then also canvas. So in another chapter in this video, I'm going to test these markers on each of those surfaces and see how they dry, if there's any like pooling or if there's any like seepage like going through the paper, and we'll see if that is true. And it also says on their website that there are several effects that you can create with these paint pens. So we're going to be testing those. One of them is that like they're water soluble, so you can mix it with water to like make cool gradients. Another one is that you can pull it down and then use a straw to make like a nice splatter pattern, which is pretty cool. And then we're also going to test how blendable they are, how layerable they are, like white on black, black on white, and see how those work. And then we're gonna go over the different nib sizes, what they look like, and what everything costs. So stay tuned. I'll put up chapters if you guys want to skip around down there to get exactly what you need, but I'll see you guys in the testing stuff. So let's go that way. Bye! Alright guys, let's go through the Posca website and talk about the different type of nibs and marker options that they have. I'll be showing all the ones that I currently have, but there are a few that I just don't have right now. So looking at the website, there are multiple different types. We got the brush tip, the 1MR, the 1MC, and the 3M. All of these are going to be more for detailing, for small lines, for intricate little bits that you need. None of these would be for blocking out color. All good for like illustrator work, for small work, and for writing your name on stuff. I love all these markers for those. Going down to the next set of markers, we have the 5M, the 7M, the 8K, and the 17K. So the 5M is where I started. I got a pack of them on Amazon, and it's a really good set to start off with. It's very broad. You can use it for a lot of different things. You can both block and color if you need to, and make lines. And it's the bullet tip, so it's not pointed, it's going to be a rounded tip, and it's very versatile. I use it still in every single painting that I do. Next step up from that is going to be the 7M, so it's just going to be a bigger, broader bullet tip, so same style nib, but just a bigger application of it. And I don't currently have this one, so I can't say, but if it's anything like the 5M, I'm sure it's super useful in bigger projects. Next up is the 8K. The 8K I love for doing backgrounds, for blocking in color, for making nice straight lines. It's been very useful in doing like line work. I got really into like Art Deco stuff for a minute, and I used the gold one, and I was able to do cool lines around the paintings, and that was neat. And the 17K is a mop of a marker. I don't have this one. I don't have any use for it unless it would be for, blocking in backgrounds. But if something's going to be that big, I might as well just use paint or tape it off and use spray paint on it. So if you are into graffiti, I could see how this tip would be really useful for you to get those really thick, bold lines, and also to be able to turn it sideways and get like nice thinner lines. So that's where I could see an application for that one. So all of them are water-based paints, which is really nice. So if you are painting on anything that's not wood or paper, you can use a paper towel and some like water, and or soda water. Soda water works nice too, to get the paint off. In some of the tests that I did in this video, like on the ceramic deer that I drew on, I used like a little bit of soda water and all of the marker came off of it, so that was super nice. So if you do mess up on something, you can just wipe it away. But for the same token in that, you have to be careful whenever you're sealing it, that whatever you're using isn't too watery. Make sure you shake it really well, because if it is, it can get into the paint and make that bleed. Has happened, not fun. So for the next thing, all right, now we're going to talk about colors. There are 66 colors that these come in. There's 8 metallic, 6 fluorescent, and 8 glitter ones. I haven't used the glitter ones. I have used just about all of the primary and the fluorescent ones as well. They're really nice. So on their website, it will go into more detail of what style marker and nib that each color comes in, because it's not going to be like across the board. Like for instance, right here on this website, it says deep gray is only available in one type of tip. So do your research. If there's certain colors that you want to use for a project, make sure that they are available before you just run to the art store and, you know, try to pick up something that doesn't exist. So I'm just gonna scroll through this so you can see all the colors. For the yellows, I really like the sunshine yellow. It's super nice. It's a really cool color. I really like the gold a lot. I have gold in just about all of the tips. I like to use it for either line work, for adding background. These are some of the fluorescent ones. This khaki green's a really nice color too. I like that one a lot. All right, and that's all the colors that they come in. So now we're going to talk about the different brush types and what they can be used for. This first one up is the PCF 350. It's used for calligraphy, for coloring, and I like to use it to make nice edges along my painting. It adds a really nice contrast. This gold one's my favorite one in particular. And some items that it's similar to is a rounded tip brush, and also the brush tip side of a Copic marker. You'll be able to get nice fine points, but if you lay it down flat, you can have a bolder line as well. So that's why I was saying for calligraphy it's really nice. Next up, we have the pen type of the Posca markers. It's the PC1MR. It's going to produce really fine lines, so if you do any illustrative type work, this is the pen for you. Items that it's similar to is a fine tip Sharpie, and I also have some Molotow liners, and they're very similar. And it's kind of similar to a lay pen. Lay pen is a little bit thinner, but for like bullet journaling and for sketchbook doodles, threw it in as a comparison. Next up, we have the PC1M or 1MC. It's a bullet tip. It's really fine, nice and pointy. I like this a lot for line work, for adding nice details or highlights. It's definitely one that I've gone through several of. Similar to it is the Molotow acrylic One for All, the 1.5 millimeter tip, which is also a bullet tip. And it's also similar to the fine tip Sharpie paint pens. These ones are oil based. I think they also come in water based, but the nibs are going to be very similar. Now we have the PC3M. It's another bullet tip. It's a little bit bigger. It's very adaptable. These are some of the newest ones that I've added to my arsenal of paint pens. Good for line work, good for details. It's similar to the 2mm Molotow One for All acrylic pens. And if you're asking why I have both, Molotow come in just different colors than the Poscas do, so it's just to have a variety of them. It's also similar to just like a regular Sharpie. The nib sizes are really comparable to each other. Alright, now we have the PC5M. It's a versatile bullet tip. It's a great place to start with these pens. The first thing I got with them was one of the variety packs. I think I got it off of Amazon. But if you are just starting with these and want to try them, it's a really good place. Something it's similar to is the medium point of the Sharpie paint pens. Again, these Sharpie paint pens are oil-based, not water-based like the Poscas, but the nibs are similar. It is also similar to the 4mm Molotow One for All acrylic paint pens. Alright, now we're getting to the chisel tips. It's the PC8K. It's great for blocking in color, for making really thick, bold lines, especially if you're trying to get something that's really straight. And you can turn the pen while you're using it, so if you want something wider, or if you want something finer. So it's versatile in that way. This is similar to the bold point Sharpie paint pens. It basically has the same exact nib in it. As you can see here. Yeah, it's the same thing. But the oil paints are going to give you more of a glossy finish, while the Poscas will give you a matte finish. So that's the difference between these two. Alright, let's talk about price comparison of individual Posca markers. So the 8Ks are going to run about $6.50 a marker. The 3Ms and the 5Ms are both around $3.99. The brush tip is going to be the most expensive out of these. They're going to be $9.99 on average. And while the medium-sized tips are all going to be $3.99. So if you buy them in a pack, this is where I would start if I were you and I've never used these before. The retail price is $29.99. You can often get these for much cheaper though, just look for sales. At Michael's, they always have a 20% off coupon. And for the 8K, the retail price is $59.99 for a pack. The 8Ks I've only found online, but the 5Ms I have found at Michael's before. In comparison to some other types of paint pens, Molotows run about $7, while the Sharpies run about $4 a marker, and this is just a Target house brand. That was about $2 on average for the markers that come in a pack. And remember, of this size, the Posca marker was $3.99. Alright, let's talk about effects now. Some of these I hadn't tried before this video, so it was fun to do. The first one I'm going to attempt is splattering. I had never done this, so I didn't know how it was going to work. First I tried with just putting the marker down on a piece of wood and absolutely nothing happened. I tried again, nothing happened. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. Now the water helped pull the pigment up off of the wood, but it still wasn't moving. It wanted to stay where it was. So I tried pulling some up on the straw and then doing it that way, and that seemed to work. So if you were to do this at home, on the side in like a cup or like a paint tray, I would just dilute some of the pigment from the marker, get it on a straw, and then splatter it. Or you can try like what I did here and add way too much water, mix it up a little bit, make a mess, and then ka-chow. The splattering effect does work, but I would definitely practice it before you just go all in on it. And it did dry very transparent as well. So I don't know if you need a lot of the ink from the markers. There's definitely less water than what I used, but it did come out almost muddy. Alright, now we're gonna test how they lay on top of each other. So with the black over the white did not come through it at all. So to build up layers and build up colors, it can be done with all of the markers. And be careful whenever you're doing, lighter color on top of a dark color, because sometimes the markers will mix together. So just make sure you're cleaning the nib of your pen as you go. Now we're going to test gradient. So for here, I'm going to do red and yellow and make an orange gradient in between. I have used this technique on some paintings, and it does take a lot of ink. It takes a lot of going back and forth and cleaning your nibs. Here I tried it with a paintbrush and some water. It did take a little practice. It took me back to, high school art class of making these gradients. But as you can see here, blending the light into the dark, it does work. You can mix these together. I would just suggest that you use a paintbrush and water. Make sure that your surface is saturated with the ink. And if you are going to blend with just the markers themselves, make sure you're cleaning as you go, like what I was talking about with the white over the black. And for cleaning your nibs, you can actually take the nibs out of the markers and put them in a little glass of water. And also, if they're dry or the ink's not coming out consistently, you can also rehydrate the nibs in a glass of water too. You can set it for like a couple hours or overnight if it's really bad. But there you go, made a gradient. Alright, for this last test, I'm going to mix them with just the markers themselves. So if you are trying to make a color that you don't have in the pens, you can always do this as well. So again, I'm using red and yellow to make orange. As you can see, I'm stippling and depressing the nib a little bit. Be very careful when you're depressing the nib on your artwork, because it can just all pull out really fast, especially if it's a new pen. But as you can see, you can mix the colors together on a surface. Alright, let's do some surface tests. So for the first test, I'm just going to use regular copy paper, printer paper, and then some cardstock paper. And we're going to see how they lay on the paper, if the paper starts to rip, and then also if it's going to bleed through the paper. I decided just to do a little lightning bolt and a streak for all of these tests as well. For the cardstock, it held out pretty well. For the printer paper though, if you can notice where I made the streaks at, it's starting to deform the paper. It's a little bit ripply. The cardstock though kept its shape just fine. Took the ink nicely. It was dry fairly quickly. But for the printer paper, it didn't absorb all the ink that I wanted it to, and it also started to pool up in that spot, and you can see it through the back of it, but no surprise there. Alright, let's test some art paper. The first one we're going to do is watercolor. It's 140 pounds. You could find this at any art store. Again, lightning bolt practice. Whole abstract lightning bolt, the more I stare at it. For the second test, we're gonna use mixed media paper. It's 98 pounds. This one says it can take everything like acrylics, watercolor, pen and ink. I was having a hard time getting the ink on this one as smooth as the last paper. I don't know if it's because it's less weight or just what it's made of. Then we're also going to test some acrylic paper. This is the 400 series. It's linen as well, so it has some nice texture to it. This one was taking the ink really nicely. And the last one I'm going to test is some 100-pound Bristol paper. Bristol board. So I don't know if it was the marker, if it was the paper, but same problem was happening with the mixed media one, that it wasn't really wanting to take the ink. So now let's see if there was any bleeding. Let's tear this paper out of this book like an absolute monster. So can't see it through it at all. There's no deformations with it. I took it really nice, as you can see. So watercolor paper works with Posca markers. Next up is the mixed media paper. I believe this was 98 pounds. It didn't really want to take the ink. I'm not sure why, but there was a little bit of deformation with it as well. And you can see the ink through the paper also. This one was the acrylic paper, the 400 series, and it took really nicely to it. I think the texture on it was nice as well. Different effect. And you can't see the ink through the paper also. And lastly was the Bristol board. I mostly use Bristol boards for making stencils. And you can see there's like a gloss to it, but you can't see it through it. So that's the paper test. I'd say the mixed media was the worst out of the bunch. This is the one that I wouldn't use again. Alright, let's do some line tests. First up is the PCF 350, the brush type pen. For this one, you depress the end of it to get the ink to come out, so it's a little bit different than the other ones. And it's going to pull up at the base of the brush tip where the ink comes out at. But see, you can make nice flat lines. And you can make it tail off on the end too, which is really nice. And we got the PC1M, the bullet tip, the one that's nice for fine lines and for details. So you can see here, nice and thin. I use this one a lot for highlights and like when I'm drawing skulls to add little details in. Alright, this one is the 3M. Sorry, this one's the 5M. So nice and thick. It's a good marker to start with. It's very versatile. You can block and color with it. You can draw shapes. Alright, this one's the 3M. So it's a little bit thinner than the 5M and a little bit thicker than the 1. It's similar to Sharpie in its size. And the nice thing about Posca markers is that they're going to be consistently this size every time you use them, unless you mess up the nibs, but some of them are replaceable and some of them are even reversible too. Here's the 8K, nice and thick, and I'll show you it on its side as well. So those are the two lines that you can achieve with it. There we go, line test. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Oh, and the only color I had in this at the time was white, so I'll show you it. You can kind of see the glare that came off the light, but it's thin like a pin. Alright, let's do some surface tests. So what can Poscas write on? First thing I chose was canvas. I have these pairs of shoes. Just drew in a little lightning bolt on them. And I was surprised because I personally hadn't used these to write on like clothing or shoes before. I've seen people do it. But I was really impressed with how quick it dried. Like as you can see, that was me like literally just putting it on. I gotta wipe my finger and nothing came off on it. My hands are really dirty from doing all these tests, but I promise it was on there. Nothing came off. Next test is ceramics. So this is a cool little deer that I found at a thrift store. My plan was to add little tattoos to him anyway, so I kind of went to town just drawing some lines and details on him. But everything went on really, really well. Nothing pulled up. All my lines that I made were there, and again, it dried almost immediately. And the best part about it was after I filmed this, I just used a little bit of soda water on a napkin and everything came off. There was nothing left behind, so that was really nice. Nice matte finish. No smearing when you put your hands over it. So Posca markers do work on ceramics. Next test is glass. Sorry that this is dirty and kind of out of focus. This is the piece of glass that I use when I'm making screen prints. But Posca markers went on really nicely. There was a little bit of pooling, but you just got to give it some time to dry. And once it's set, it's on there. But again, same thing. Just use some water and a napkin and it wiped right off, which was really nice. This test is metal. So I got this saw for a lettering project that I'm working on, but just decided to use some Posca markers on the side that won't be displayed. And even with how rough a shape this piece of metal is, like all that rust is natural that's on it, the markers went on it perfectly fine. I even tried to color it in. It did show some of the lines, but I think that's just because of the surface itself, that being all oxidized and uneven. If this was a clean piece of metal, I don't think that the lines would have shown up. You can see here when the light hits it. Yeah, see all those little marks? That's where it was pooling up. You just gotta be careful. And again, this just wiped off afterwards too, which is nice. This test surprised me probably the most. I haven't done rock art since I was a child, right? And these went on so smooth, the ink got into the pores, and it stayed there. Teehee. If you're into rock art, 100% go get yourself Posca markers and do this. This test is for plastic. This is another project that I have, is to paint this helmet. And I thought that this wasn't gonna dry, but it actually did dry, because this helmet still has the coating on it. You can kind of see there some of the spots are still a little bit wet, but part of it dried instantly. That was from something else. See? It's just clean. So Posca markers work on plastic. Please forgive my lint and dog covered t-shirt. I didn't realize how bad it was until after I filmed this. I've also never used Posca markers on a shirt before, and I will not be using them on a shirt again. The lint from the shirt kept getting caught in the nib. It was hard to make my lines consistent. And also, since these are water soluble, I'm sure this is just gonna immediately come off in the wash. So you can see all that lint that got on the nib. It's just not consistent. I don't think it looks too good. So I would say don't use Posca markers on t-shirts. And my favorite surface to use, wood. This piece of wood I got at Walmart as something to practice on. And up close, you're going to be able to see how it's kind of spilling a little bit. There's some bleeding from the ink into the different pores of the wood. I also hadn't sanded this piece down. So as long as your surfaces are taken care of before, you shouldn't have this issue. Another round of plastic, this time vinyl. I got my favorite little flamingo. This is another one that I thought that it was just gonna wipe off like as soon as I laid it down. But again, I was surprised. Just give it a little bit of time to dry and it actually stayed on. So if you need to like make some stuff for a party, say it's like a bachelorette party or baby shower, this would be a really easy way to customize some cool gifts or party favors. Another item that is vinyl is those little vinyl toys that you can get, and Posca markers lay down really nice on them too. So here we go. A little bit shiny, still a little bit wet, but like I said, it will dry and it stays on there. Posca markers do work on little vinyl toys. I've had this little guy sitting around my house for a long time and finally decided to draw on him for this test. If I had gone in with a little bit more planning, he probably would have turned out a little bit better. But Posca markers work really well on these, and it's nice since it's already in a pen setting that you can control your lines. You don't have to keep going and re-upping on a paintbrush. And that's the video. I hope you guys learned so much about Posca markers and now you are a better artist because of it. Go out there, go to your local art store, pick up some markers, make some rad art, tag me in it. I want to see it. Is there any effects that you guys have seen done, maybe on like TikTok or whatnot, and you want me to try? Let me know. Tag me in it, send it to me. Let's do it. And if you guys have any feedback, that being good or bad, what did you like? What did you hate? Throw that down in the comments, you know? I'm here to grow. So let me know about that. And to plug my socials, at IamTheYaki.art is my Instagram. IamTheYaki.com is my website where you can pick up prints, stickers, shirts, and original art from. And also like and subscribe. Hit those buttons. Hit those buttons right there. It's free to do. You might as well do it. But thanks for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.